At the heart of San Francisco's upscale Pacific Heights stood a mansion that seemed to look down on the rest of the world, much like its owner. Martin Holloway was a venture capitalist, a self-made billionaire, and a man who believed in one unshakable rule: success belonged only to those who proved they deserved it. He built his empire with discipline and arrogance, and it reflected in the way he treated those around him, especially the people he employed. Among them was a maid named Elena. Quiet, observant, and always impeccably polite, Elena worked the early morning shifts and rarely spoke unless spoken to. Martin barely noticed her, except when something wasn't to his standard. To him, she was just another shadow in his perfectly polished home. But what Martin didn't know was that Elena carried a world of stories behind her calm eyes. A former literature teacher from Columbia, she had come to the United States after her husband's death, seeking a better life for her teenage son, Daniel. With no support, and credentials that meant little in a foreign land, she cleaned homes during the day and studied online at night. She lived in a modest apartment in the Mission District, often skipping meals so Daniel could eat better. Their only luxury was a small second-hand bookshelf she'd rescued from a street corner. One morning, as Martin prepared for a business meeting, he heard Elena humming softly in the kitchen while arranging breakfast. Irritated, he walked in with his usual commanding presence. "Tell me something, Elena," he said, leaning against the granite island. "If you're so happy humming all the time, why are you still cleaning houses? Don't you dream of more?" Elena looked up, unsure if it was a trap. "Of course, Mr. Holloway. But dreams take time." He smirked. "Time? No, dreams take action. And brilliance. Some people have it. Others mop floors. That's the difference." Then, almost for his own amusement, he challenged her. "I'll tell you what. I'm giving a speech at Stanford next week. Write something brilliant. Impress me. Prove me wrong." The room fell silent. "It doesn't have to be about business. Just write something worth hearing. If you do, I'll fund your education or whatever project you have in mind. If not, you stick to cleaning. Deal?" He thought she'd shy away. But Elena, after a moment, nodded. "Deal." For the next 7 nights, Elena stayed up writing after her shift, digging into memories, sorrows, and quiet wisdom she'd accumulated over the years. She wrote not to prove herself to Martin, but for her son, for women like her, for the silent strength of people dismissed every day. She asked her son to read the drafts, and though Daniel was only 16, his eyes would glisten each night. "Is it really that powerful, Mama?" he'd whisper. "It's our truth, hijo. And truth has power." The night before the Stanford event, she handed Martin a sealed envelope. He took it casually, like someone accepting a child's drawing. He didn't look at her as he slid it into his briefcase. The following morning, Martin stood before a crowd of bright-eyed students and seasoned entrepreneurs. His speech was meant to be about leadership. But as he scanned his neatly typed notes, he glanced at Elena's envelope again. Curiosity nudged him. He opened it. The title read, "The Strength of the Invisible." Something about it held him. He cleared his throat and began reading aloud. "We are the hands that set your tables, the feet that sweep your floors. The ones who greet you with a smile while hiding bruises of loss, of struggle, of unspoken dreams. We are invisible. But in invisibility, we learn. We hear things when you forget we're present. We learn compassion not from seminars, but from survival. We lead not from podiums, but from the way we hold broken families together, stitch hope into our children's backpacks, and work double shifts to pay for a single hour of rest. You call us replaceable. Yet in crisis, we are your constants. You mock us, sometimes with silence. Sometimes with jokes. But behind every janitor, every nanny, every maid is a world you have not dared to understand. What makes a person valuable? Is it money? Status? Or the ability to rise each morning and give without promise of return. This is not a plea. This is a mirror. Look well. The auditorium was still. Martin's voice had changed by the end. Softer. Choked. The room erupted in a standing ovation. And he didn't take the credit. That, he said, was written by someone who cleans my house every morning before the sun rises. Word spread quickly. Elena was invited to speak at women's panels. Her essay was published in a national magazine. A scholarship foundation reached out for Daniel. News anchors ran segments titled, "The Maid Who Made a CEO Cry." Social media praised her with hashtags like #InvisibleNoMore and #ElenaSpeaksTruth. True to his word, Martin funded her return to college. But what surprised Elena most was the note he left her on her last day as a maid. "Thank you for teaching me that leadership doesn't start in boardrooms. It starts with humility." Today, Elena runs a nonprofit called the Invisible Voices Project, empowering domestic workers through education and advocacy. She offers night classes, legal support, and storytelling workshops. Daniel, now in college studying political science, volunteers for the foundation and says he wants to run for office one day, to represent people like his mother. And Martin? He remains on the board. His demeanor has softened. He's become a silent donor to several causes and often quotes Elena's speech in his corporate leadership seminars. Sometimes he visits the nonprofit, sits quietly in the back of the workshop, and listens. He no longer sees Elena as a maid. He sees her as a leader. They remain unlikely allies, bonded not by status or charity, but by a moment of truth that shattered walls built on arrogance. Because one woman dared to answer mockery with grace. And changed everything. Final note to the reader. Elena's story reminds us all that potential is not dictated by job titles or paychecks. The most profound strength often lives in the quietest corners, among those who work in silence, serve with dignity, and dream beyond what the world allows them to reach. When given even a sliver of a chance, they don't just rise. They soar. Never underestimate the person who cleans your floor, watches your child, or serves your table. They may be carrying a fire that could light the world. Certainly. Here's a beautiful, long, and heartfelt lesson based on the story. He mocked his maid with an impossible challenge. Her stunning answer changed everything. This reflection captures the emotional essence of the story and leaves a lasting message for a global audience. In a world obsessed with power, status, and wealth, we often forget that greatness doesn't always wear a suit or sit behind a mahogany desk. Sometimes, greatness walks quietly among us, in an apron, with tired eyes and gentle hands that carry generations of dreams. This story reminds us that true brilliance isn't exclusive to those with degrees or designer watches. It lives in those who persevere when the world refuses to see them, who choose dignity over complaint, and who rise each morning to serve, even when their own cups are empty. Elena was mocked for her silence, underestimated because of her uniform, and challenged as if her dreams didn't belong in the same room as billionaires. But instead of responding with bitterness, she responded with beauty. Through words that reflected not only her strength but the silent strength of millions like her.